going to try to edit this audio as little as possible and just kind of talk about what has happened to me. This happened to me really recently, like as little as a month ago. So I've had a small amount of time to think about it. I've had a small amount of time to process, but the conclusion I've kind of come to is that I need to kind of let this go in a way. And I feel by sharing it with people that I know love me and support me, it'll be kind of a cathartic experience to just let it all out and release it from, the prison of my body, because that's kind of how I felt. It hasn't been like at the forefront of my head, but anytime my mind is quiet, it's like right there. And I think it's had an effect on my mental health a little bit and how I've been feeling this last month. I also want to share it because I feel like if this has ever happened to you and, you have ever had anyone dismiss it or have even tried to dismiss it yourself as something that is not important, I want to let you know it is important. It is your personal space and you choose who you allow in that personal space. And if someone just decides to take that choice away from you, that is sick and it's wrong. And you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling revolted. You're not alone in feeling kind of guilty. There's a myriad of emotions that kind of pop up when something like this happens. And they're all okay. But at the end of the day, it's not your fault. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. It's not your fault. Also, a little side note, if I am like giggling or like chuckling or laughing when I'm speaking, it's not because I don't take this seriously. Obviously I do. It's just kind of, I think, a nervous habit. So it was a weekend and me and my husband and DeBabes all went to Walmart. I wanted to put some plants on our deck. So we were going to Walmart with the purpose of walking through the garden center. And this particular Walmart, I wouldn't say is in a bad neighborhood at all. But it has had a lot of like incidents there. One of the most notable ones as of late, there was a woman in a car who had been shot a bunch of times, and the car was kind of just rolling through the parking lot of that Walmart. And it wasn't like just a random occurrence. I guess it was like an ex-boyfriend, but obviously this Walmart doesn't have the greatest track record of good things happening at it. But anyway, we were at the Walmart in the garden center, and I wanted to go out and look at all the hanging plants that were in the non-shaded portion of the garden center, but I did not put any sunscreen on DeBabes, so I didn't really want him out in the sun. So Mike and I split up. He went with the cart and DeBabes and was at the more shaded, still outdoor, but shaded part of the garden center, while I went into the hanging plants exposed part. And this exposed section did not have an exit to the parking lot. The exit to the parking lot was in the shaded section where Mike and DeBabes were. So keep that in mind because that will be important later in the story. And also keep in mind it was a scorching hot day. It was in the high 90s and it was high humidity. So I had a fairly short skirt on. So I was interested in the hanging plants. So there was a couple times where I put my foot up on the wooden pallets or whatever that they have the plants on the floor on to kind of get a leg up to look at the hanging plants. And usually when I wear a shorter skirt, I am very aware of what's around me. But in this particular instance, it was so hot. I was just trying to get a couple plants and get the hell out of there. So I noticed this man in a cowboy hat and a kind of like a jumpsuit, like a tan jumpsuit, kind of walking around looking at plants. He was really the only other person out there, so that's really the only reason I noticed him was because he was just in my area and there was nobody else in my area. And there was a few times when I noticed he was really close up next to me, but I just figured it was because he was looking at the same plants I was looking at. I guess he did not realize that I was not there alone, that Mike and DeBabes were obviously in my company because they were away from me. So when I started walking back into the shaded area, I heard Mike say, "Why don't you put that thing down?" And I thought he was talking to me for a second. I didn't have any plants either. So I was like, "What?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "That guy right there, that son of a bitch, why don't you put that thing away?" And I turn around and the guy's like walking out to the far corner of the open sun area with his phone out. And I still was very confused. I'm like, what are you saying? What's going on? And he said he was taking pictures of you. He had his phone down and then up facing at me. So he was upskirting me and then taking pictures of me. And, and I guess being fairly obvious about it. And I guess he either didn't see Mike or didn't care. And then Mike was saying, yelling at him and saying, "Are you going to really serious delete these pictures? This clown, look at him. He's deleting these pictures." And so I'm like kind of shocked. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, "What should we do?" And he was like, "I don't know." Mike, I think, was just angry at that point, and kind of shocked as well. So one of the attendants, the garden attendants, kind of heard us. And Mike and I told her what had happened. And I told her, I need loss prevention. I need loss prevention here right now. So she was like, "Okay, I'll hurry up and go get them." And then told the other garden attendants that were closer to the Walmart door, the door into Walmart. So they came over and were kind of hovering around us while this time, this whole time, this guy is over in the corner, very obviously deleting pictures off his phone. And then he started to pretend that he was on the phone. Like he kept touching his Bluetooth and saying stuff as if he was on the phone. But, the second Mike called him out, he ran and was immediately like touching his phone and very clearly deleting stuff off his phone. Now, like I said, the exit into the parking lot was in the shaded area, and this guy was basically like hiding in the corner in the sun area, and there was no way for him to get out unless he passed by me and Mike. And so, okay, at that point, I'm like shaking, my eyes are welling up with tears. And then the loss prevention guy comes running in, and he says, "What's going on?" And then I took the reins at that point, and I said, "That guy was taking pictures up my skirt, and my husband saw him, and it will be on your security cameras." And so the loss prevention guy starts to walk over to him, and then the guy just kind of like power walks through us and pretends like nothing's wrong, kind of ignores the loss prevention guy, and then starts talking to a different like attendant. And he's like, "I don't know what these people are talking about, and they're crazy, and nothing happened, and I was just on the phone minding my own business." Well, then the loss prevention guy was like, "Hey, dude, I want to talk to you. Like, hold on, slow down, talk to me. Like, talk to me." And the guy's like, "No, this, I don't need to talk to anybody," and started walking out. So then I yelled to the loss prevention guy. I said, go get his license plate number. Go get his license plate number. And then the guy just booked it to his car, and the loss prevention guy was chasing him. And, I guess he was in a truck or whatever. And he said that the guy just backed up and out of the parking lot and just sped off. So, at that point, there's nothing they can do. That he can't chase him off the premises. He can't even force him to stay there, but he was obviously very helpful because he was able to get the license plate number. So at that point, I called the police, and just kind of like a little side note, and I don't mean to get like preachy or anything and whatever, but it's so, my husband is so protective, but also like, I called 911. And he was saying, "Honey, no, don't call 911. That's not an emergency." And I feel like for him, for someone who hasn't had to navigate this world as a woman, because my experience as a woman is completely different as his experience as a man. Like, that's just plain and simple. It's biological. It doesn't have to be political. We're different. And I don't think, if it would have happened to him, I think it would have reacted differently. And I'm not mad at him or I don't blame him or anything, but it just kind of goes to show how different our experiences are, because he was just like, "Oh, it's like not a big deal. Don't bother the police. Don't call. It's not an emergency." And I, said, yes, it is. It is an emergency because he was taking pictures of me in my underwear without my permission. And he could do this to someone else, because no one just decides one day when this guy was like in his 60s to just take pictures of girls' skirts. He had to have done this a couple times before, and he had to have gotten away with it if he is so brazen enough to do it in the middle of a Walmart garden center. So what also kind of sucked, like I said, it was really, really hot, and we had to wait for the police out front. I ended up having Mike start the car and put DeBabes in the car while I kind of waited at the front of Walmart. And obviously, Mike can't leave the car, so he was in the car or leaning up against the car with DeBabes, and I waited. And I kind of needed that time, too. It's like when it happens, when something like that happens, when your personal space is so invaded, you just shut off. I was shaking. I was crying. I wasn't bawling, but it was just like this really silent cry. There were no like heaves. It was just tears automatically came, as if to like comfort my face because my face was red hot. I just shut down completely. I had no concept of how to feel or what to say, and I didn't want to be comforted. I didn't, I didn't want to be around anyone. It was like I needed a minute to gather myself because I couldn't believe what just happened, at a Walmart garden center. Who does that? Actually, I have an answer for you. Someone who has been doing it his whole life, who has gotten off doing this his whole life, whether it be before smartphones with, a handheld camera with the flash turned off, like doing it his whole life. And probably getting encouraged by friends or whoever that think it's hot or it's cool or it's even funny. It's not funny. It's just disgusting. Like this man, oh God. I what I keep thinking? I keep thinking like, oh Lord, like, Mike had the babe, so he couldn't do too much, obviously. But like if my dad was with me, oh my God. Or my mom, even my mom, my scrappy little mom, like, well, the babes would have been with us no matter what. But I mean, if the babes wasn't with us, I don't know what Mike would have done. And I'm kind of secretly glad that the babes was there because I wouldn't want my husband to get into a scrap with someone or get hurt. I almost said because of me. And it's not because of me. It's not because of me. It's not my fault. But it's like your first instinct is to say, like, what could I do different? What could I have worn that was different? What could I, oh, I shouldn't have put my leg up on the table, and that probably encouraged him. It's like, why am I thinking this? This man, random dude, old enough to be my dad, was taking pictures of me and up my skirt in a public setting without my permission. Why is my first response like, oh, what could I have done different? It's just like, it's so disgusting. But anyway. When the police showed up, they were very polite, but they were pretty much to the point. They were very patient with me because at that point my voice was shaking. It was hard to, get the words out. They talked to Mike really briefly, and then they went in to, I guess, talk to the loss prevention guy and then to probably also get security footage or whatever. But that was pretty much it. They gave me the case number and said that I would get a call in the next 24 hours, letting me know, kind of what's going to happen, or I guess what their investigation, if they're going to open an investigation or not. And I never heard from anyone, so I had to call in, and essentially it just was like investigation pending, and the woman was like, to be honest, crimes like this are really, really hard to, solve, I guess, to fix, to track down, because, he very well could delete the pictures, but then it's like the question of, well, do we take his electronics, blah, blah, blah. And it's, I guess, much more complicated. She said it's much more complicated than it seems like. It's not just a matter of taking his phone and looking through it. There's a lot more involved. I was kind of thrown into an emotional tailspin after all this happened. You know, and I don't think I show stuff like that a lot on the outside. It's very much an internal process for me. And I was hurting and I was, you know, I kept thinking about what if Mike wasn't with me? What if he followed me to the car? What if DeBabes was with me and, you know, he tried to hurt DeBabes or tried to hurt me or both of us, you know, it just, thoughts like that kept turning over and over again in my head. And then also like, God, what could I have done differently? And I just, like I said earlier, I had to force myself not to think that. And that in itself is obviously a much larger societal problem. It's not just within me. So many women, so many men, so many people who have experienced sexual harassment, sexual violence, you know, they think about this. And I don't mean to, you know, make it seem like my situation is somehow equal to someone who has experienced sexual violence, but it's all under that umbrella of sexual inappropriateness and people thinking it's okay to take someone's choice away like that. Because, you know, I don't really even know how to speak on it other than just it's not okay. Obviously. It is so obviously not okay, but I don't know what else to say other than it was rough. It was rough. It was confusing. It made me afraid. It made me afraid of that Walmart. I don't like going there anymore by myself. Anyway, I am sorry this got a little rambly and there was a lot of ums and you knows. I was just trying to recount this, just kind of verbatim, just kind of spilling it out on the table. Yeah, because it was a really uncomfortable experience, and I do feel a sense of like, now that I've shared it, just like in general, I don't know, even like right now, it's not even live, and I already feel a sense of relief. So, yeah, if if anything like this has happened to you, I hear you. I'm here for you. I get it. Here's a hug. Here's a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And I love you. I love you so much. You are so worthy. And don't ever feel any different. Please. I don't know. I know begging you not to feel different is not going to make it happen. But it breaks my heart to think that any of you, any of my family, you know, anybody has felt this way before. Because it is such an awful feeling and it shakes you to your core. So I don't really know how to end this video other than just saying thank you guys so much for watching, and I love you. I love you all.